Yeah. I mean,
I want to start with something.
yes.
We always do this narrative, try to write this kind of journey thing that you did. Do you think this is kind of giving more meaning to the work, or like is it like putting it in context, or what is it exactly like this story that you've been putting here inside?
Thank you for that question. I think, I mean, I wanted to give some kind of context, yeah, like to the portraits, and to, yeah, frame them as like that it was whatever the quotes are, and the research is within the context of, yeah, being from outside and trying to understand. So yeah, it's a kind of, must be a term like there's like the roman à clef, so like it's like the Bildungsroman, the like novel of education. So the novel of education as artwork, or alternately like the picaresque journey. But it was also like putting some highlights on the some highlights on the trip that made an impact on me, like outside of these interviews, like to give an explanation of the process of research. Yep. I don't really. I mean, talking about artwork, it can be fun. It can also be kind of taxing. Like, and I think I try to do things that don't need a lot of interpretation from the outside. It's like pretty straightforward. Maybe you can say, these are excerpts from interviews. I tried to pick a quote that would be like make a kind of constellation around this topic of the question I was kind of asked to address, which was like what happened with the Fourth Columbia International. But as I did the research, it was clear that you had to ask, okay, how is this related to the earlier editions? How is it related to Rewalk Biennial? How is it related to the development of the art scene here, and how it's related to then the political context? And all these things were equally important, and also then the kind of the psychogeography of the different institutions. And I was trying to during the research, and finally to I talked to people about quite often about these two poles of that I saw represented here, like one, the utopia, the art as being capable of kind of articulating a utopian kind of idea about how the world should be, and then which has like one lineage, and then another lineage related simply to like a kind of criticism of the world, like a critique of reality. So between those two, you can have like, say, like a kind of, if you think of it as a either like the idealized landscape, like from Renaissance onward, like the kind of fantasy landscape that shows a kind of order in nature, or like a kind of symmetry, versus like the a kind of kids playing. Well, that's good. That's what I think what I like best when in exhibition context is when kids play. And the other would be like trying to map reality in some kind of precise way to in order to critique it. Like you start with what's there in order to say this is what is hidden. So like institutional critique practices, I think, are often starting from this premise of like the Brechtian, like a social realist, but Brechtian, like let's look at the world and say what's wrong with it. And I saw both of these strains were very evident, and maybe sometimes even mixed together as a kind of tendency, as two tendencies. What was I? So that was like the final part of what I started to explore was the reality of institutional life or the players in institutions, and then the kind of different ideologies of art that one can see at work. And then I picked quite intuitively some different quotes that would give a kind of overview of this research topic, and finally like doing these portraits, kind of very classical realist portraits, to give some kind of dignity to the people that I was interviewing, like to portray them in a way, in a very realistic light, and also somehow in each case sympathetically. So that's it. Yes, you in the white shirt. Do you have a question?
You're talking about these two parts of reading the context. Did you notice time-wise and regarding these two parts difference in media and aesthetics, in the expressions of the artists, or a change in media and aesthetics?
Actually, I mean, I didn't focus on actual artwork, really. I didn't look closely at the artworks that were in the different editions of Kalandia, and it wasn't really even an interest. I was actually more interested in what the organizers thought that they were doing from what and also then the different kind of logistic problems or logistic challenges that came up. So no, I wasn't. I mean, when I talk about this utopian or realist, I was more kind of in terms of like tendencies, not in terms of their realization in anything.
So it seems like the institution, like the whole idea of that institution didn't go along together. It's a matter of the people who's. I mean, it's a matter of the people themselves are in charge of the institutions. This is what I'm trying to say. Or is it something else? Like the institutions are not working together again, like the Kalandia thing, what happened in last edition. I think the focus on the persons themselves, like the portraits, let's give another kind of layer that the people in charge in the institution.
I mean, it wasn't only the people in charge, it was like also to the extent I was able, trying to get also the assistants, trying to get a kind of broader view, not like the official narrative of what happened or what went wrong or what went successfully, but rather from different perspectives. And I mean, this is like a selection, so there's also like some more interviews with people, for instance, academics, that I didn't use because I decided to just, or artists, I decided just to use the interviews with people who were in one way or another involved in the different Kalandias.
I didn't read all the quotes.
Yes.
Yet. I planned. I just read. So, but you're the only one actually that met all of us and was able to hear the views of all of us directly. Because in our cases, we knew what others would say indirectly, or sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly. So what went wrong? No, people are in institutions. Institutions are people at the end of the day, and whoever is sitting there will definitely shape whatever comes out, regardless of the structures, blah blah, the history, the culture. It's there, but whoever is there shapes the outcome. So, really, I have my own feeling of what went wrong, but what was the answer to your question? Do you have? No, really, I'm just interested in knowing what went wrong from your perspective, like as someone coming from outside and
yes.
just seeing those people and listening to all of them from equal distance.
I want to add just something to that. The portraits and the quotes, they look really amazing, but in a way, it gives an idea that all the people look the same. And even like the way the quotes are arranged, it's like people also saying the same, like all of them saying the same things at the same time. Can you? I don't know. Can you?
Maybe. So, like you're saying, maybe Jack should have been scaled up and down.
No, I'm not.
Jack very large, and then.
No.
That's not that.
It's just saying you're making a statement that actually at the end of the day we're all the same.
The similarity gives kind of general idea that everybody is saying the same thing.
I mean, I like oral history because it's kind of, this history from the bottom up. It's not giving the official view. So, in that case, what one person says in this context to me has equal weight. It's not about people's actual power in the world or the differentials in power. It's about giving equal weight to the different perspectives that because like someone who's an assistant will have a very different perspective than someone who's in charge of an institution, and at the same time might actually observe things that the person who's in charge is not observing. So to try to also represent this kind of positionality, I think would be quite challenging in terms of making an artwork versus a documentary or something. But to answer the question, I mean, I think it's not. I don't think it was one thing. I think it was a constellation of things that came together. Some which had nothing to do, which were bad luck, or with the kind of development of the political situation, and other things having to do. I mean, Khaldun Bishara said one thing that I thought that I used, which maybe also has something to do with it. He said, in Palestine, things have a quick birth and a slow death. So maybe it was just this challenge of creating like a durable collaborative structure. When you have so many challenges, where you have the challenge of funding, where you have the challenge of institutions that are themselves having different internal struggles, or and where you have the political situation that's getting more increasingly difficult. And then, I mean, of course, the elephant of the room, which is this whole thing with VAF, and how that this was difficult to manage, and that it put, as I understand it, it put big and small institutions kind of in competition with each other, or for the same pot of money. I don't know if I'm understanding this correctly or not. You can correct me. And then that there was some strange way in which the directors all lost heart in the structure, or in rather the project. And I mean, different people told me this, that so the directors of institutions stopped going to meetings, and they sent their assistants, and the assistants couldn't take decisions, and it was like delaying the inevitable in some way, because people, I think, were anxious, and at the same time it seems like the outcome was not so bad, like the Collective 4. It doesn't seem like it was unsuccessful. From what I've seen of the when I looked through the material, it seemed like, yeah, it was maybe not cohering around a theme, but that there were ambitious projects, and maybe that was the other thing, that there were differences from the beginning about, well, is a theme necessary, is a theme not necessary? I mean, Jack Persekin had the opinion that a theme was absolutely not necessary. Other people had maybe a different opinion, were desiring some kind of cohesion on this level. But it did seem that there was, in the prior edition, there was dissatisfaction. There was a competition about who would make the best show, or who would have.
There was a competition. There was
between the different institutions.
I mean, who's going to do better?
Yes.
You felt that?
That's what people said.
Okay.
You never felt it.
Actually, it was I felt it was kind of one exhibition for everyone.
I never felt it. That is interesting.
No, I used to work for Hosh, the first two editions. I didn't feel that it was kind of competitive, who's doing the better show.
Yeah, but the first two, that was not like this.
Maybe the third and the fourth edition. But anyway, I just wanted also to ask, in Picasso in Palestine, you did almost the same. You did almost the same. You interviewed everybody that was kind of working, but not in this context. Not in context that institutions are not working together anymore. Like in Picasso, you did also interview most of the people who were part of the cultural scene.
A successful project.
It was about success.
Successful project.
Like in Picasso, the comics.
Yes.
It was about success.
No, I think it
or
was.
Like that was about success. This was about failure, or like I don't know. It's like it's.
I think, like with the Picasso, like the thing that made it easy was, on the one hand, it was, very bounded in time. Like you had a project, it was conceived at one point, kind of as a joke, and then it was realized, and then there. So you could say, okay, it began somehow around 2008 or something, it developed. There were very concrete logistical challenges and things to overcome. There were certainly different protagonists involved, and also there were different actors. So it was like a kind of puzzles, a kind of like a puzzle with different pieces. And like, so even, you know, the Israeli art handlers were part of this. They had one perspective on what happened, and Fatma Abdul Karim had another, Charles Esch had another. It was very clear that it was what they told me was related to their position and their access to information. And there was, in the end, not like I didn't completely, I think, get the whole story, because there was something that stayed outside of the frame. But here you have, I think it was clear from the beginning. It was much more diffuse. It was about an evolution of a structure. It was about the kind of developing ambitions of an art community, and it was about how these are intersecting with a political reality, and just chance events. But I mean, and there's much more that I should look into. For instance, in this, it's a very unfinished research, and I want to continue with it. But for instance, what was it in? There was some people said, well, the situation in Gaza meant that it wasn't even clear that it would happen. So there was an uncertainty about it, maybe well into the project, well into the process. So what do you think? What is your perspective on Colombia?
I think we lost heart, basically. And then there was a lot of enthusiasm at the beginning, excitement, new project, new ideas. And when it became structured and it needed more logistics, it was too heavy. Regardless of, the political situation has always been bad.
Yeah.
Okay, it was worse then, but occupation has been there for a while. PA has been there for a while. Scarce funding was always the case. Okay, with ups and downs. But yeah, maybe we lost heart, we got disenchanted with each other as well. At the end of the day, many times it comes back to who was sitting on the table, around the table at that moment in time. It's not, okay, there are organizations and institutions and issues between them, etc. But for Qalandia to work, it depended on the people, not on the organizations or the situation. I think for me it depended on the people. And I don't know if it's true or not, but and not to give credit to myself, it wasn't me, but for the first 2 editions or 3 editions, I don't remember. When I was in Ruwaq, and we at Ruwaq, we took care of all the logistic admin, blah blah. Ruwaq in itself is very flexible, and decisions are quickly done, and financial admin were always done easily and were non-threatening to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And that in itself took a burden away from people's thinking. But I think when the issue also started to move away from that place being the non-threatening place that would collect people, I think some, not necessarily it's a big cause, but maybe it allowed tensions to appear, because then you would think about, who will take care of this, you should all chip in, then instead of talking about art projects, you'll end up talking about
Logistics.
and that makes one easily lose heart.
So it just became less fun.
Yes, yeah, I think so.
And-
Because in the first 2 editions at least, it was fun. It was really fun, Okay, a lot of headache, but it was fun.
I mean, on the one hand, like this origins of the Rewalk Biennial as a kind of as a parody
Yeah,
of the biennial structure. Like even say the Biennale, the Rewalk
Yeah.
Biennial, like that it was coming from Khalil's
Khalid's project,
and that there was this strong element of parody, and that then it lost this.
Lost this as well.
Over time with Colombia, it maybe maybe took itself more seriously in a.
Maybe the institution couldn't make fun. I mean, they couldn't make fun of themselves the way the way Khalid tried to do with the Rewalk Biennale, to make it
self-reflexive.
It was more ironic. But then it stopped to be.
But Khalil's project, the Biennale, I'm trying to remember the year. I think
It was in the second.
2009. One of Khalil's project, one of Khalil's editions, the one we went to Venice for, was it
7?
2009?
Yeah.
7? 9?
No,
Before.
it was 9. Yasmin was 1 year old.
Okay.
Yasmin walked when we were in Italy for the first time. I remember it was 2009, and Khalil took the Biennale to Venice through there was an exhibition for the Palestinian.
But Khalil comes from this world of institutional critique.
I know,
He's-
but it wasn't clear to all of us at Rewalk then.
Yeah.
Because when Khalil exhibited in Venice, and in the panel there was, I think, Suad, Farhat, Nasser, Yara, and they talked about the 50 Village project and everything. And Khalil displayed the 50 Village project in this way. And part of it was, fun, but the extent to which Khalil was, quote unquote, using them as part of the art
His project.
of his project, that wasn't clear to them,
Well, this is probably
because by end of 2009
No, I mean,
and 2010,
I-
it was a big fiasco in Rewalk because of that. And Farhat left Rewalk because of that. And Nazmi and Suad, in the aftermath, also left Rewalk, not because of Khalil's project, but it created a big discussion in Rewalk in 2009, 2010, and that changed the entire administration of the space. It wasn't the only thing, but it started it. Because when you're an organization and not all of you in the place, in the staff, understand that you're part of an artwork or an art project and you discover it afterwards, it's shocking.
Yeah, of course, but
And that's what happened.
but Khalil started this.
It happened. Actually, I lived through it, but more serious than this.
No, I'm just trying to stick back to Khalil's idea there. That
Yeah,
to make an idea of a biennale
Yeah.
out of nothing.
Yes. The idea of a museum out of nothing.
Exactly, of course. This is before Khalil was done like with a lot
The
of
auction
artists.
out of nothing.
Yeah, artists did this even in the 70s.
Yeah, it's
before
fine.
Khalil,
It's
and,
who he is.
Yeah.
I think it's the individualism. Everyone is working for their own
Artists, you
project.
mean? Or,
Yes.
Yeah.
even by biennales, to be famous in the world.
Yeah.
It's
Of course.
Yeah, what hurt with Khalil was that some people felt it was his individualistic drive. That's the thing.
No, just the idea of that we can ironically make a Binali.
Oh, of course.
This is, but then the institutions took it very serious and they really wanted to build
A Biennale after,
Exactly.
I know. But the thing is, for many of us, we knew that it was making fun. It was,
of course.
No, it was clear. Not many of us, all of us. We knew that, Khalil is critiquing or creating or something, by calling it Riwaq Biennale and quote unquote taking away whatever makes a regular Biennale and making a new form and making that was clear and fine. But the funny thing is, when the Biennale started with the Biennale, then the name stayed, and we just thought of so many ways how to bring it into Qalandia International anyway, because it was a crazy way of getting the words to work together, like the Biennale and the Jerusalem show, and to make a joint project and make it gestures in time. That was the first edition. Because Riwaq wanted the name, and Jerusalem Show wanted the name, and we wanted to have a joint theme. It was crazy just to think how to lay this out on paper. It was crazy.
Also, the Jerusalem Show stopped to exist. The Riwaq Biennale stopped to exist.
And then
the Qalandia thing stopped to exist.
But the funny thing, Raouf, that's what I'm saying. It was clear at the beginning that the Biennale was not a regular Biennale, and it was used in a fun way. And it's fine. But then it came into Qalandia International and became a title and a name. But when it split, when it didn't work, or when Tirdad and Khalil came back for the last edition.
For 2016.
Yeah, Tirdad and Khalil came back and they created another form of the Biennale, which is a year-long thing or even longer, I don't remember.
More diffused.
Extended, and they kept the name. And I found that I didn't attend the entire
Well, that's why
thing
I was
or the
bringing
events.
back also Picasso in Palestine, because Picasso in Palestine was kind of another brick that's built on Riwaq Biennale.
Anja?
And I think so. I think Picasso in Palestine did this also huge show.
Yes.
Started the idea
I
of the
don't
museum.
remember it's any linkage to Riwaq. I don't have it.
Because I thought that what Michael was doing in both two projects. The Riwaq Biennale started the whole thing, and then Picasso in Palestine came and bring the idea of the museum in a very more critique way. I mean, bring it to life.
And Guinness lists.
And then the museum, and then so that's why, Michael, I was bringing back the interviews that you did in Picasso in Palestine, and the interviews you did for this edition of this exhibition. And you almost met the same people with, let's say, not the same, but at least the majority.
No, actually, there wasn't so much overlap at all.
Come on, Jack,
and Yazid, Yazid, and that's true.
Have you met Khalid now, this time?
I met Khalid, yes.
Because he was in the first edition. Khalid was a big, big voice, like a big contributor, I would say. In the first edition.
I met him, but he wasn't. I think he wasn't exactly super interested to talk.
Because, he laughed at.
So that's this overlapping that you've been going through. I'm not saying that everything is overlapped with that before 10 years. But like after 10 years.
So there's, there were like where people were in this kind of political economy here changed radically with every person that I interviewed, I would say, where there's an overlap.
Yeah, because when you were doing the interviews, I had this deja vu thing.
Yes.
You remember?
Yes.
We had this conversation between each other when you did these interviews, but I didn't interview this guy 10 years ago, and then we started to bring back.
Yeah, exactly.
So after 10 years, this is if things still the same, or did you think it's changed, like you, because you were coming after this whole period?
I mean, a question I had, it's not really answering your question, but a question I was, I had was, at times, was, would the situation change, or could it be revised if there was as with the biennials, that there's like a kind of the curator, that there's a head, that there's someone in charge of everything, and then the institutions are just saying, okay, we give over the space and some budget for this person's vision, and then different people said no, people would never agree to that. I just had a question for myself: would this be possible? But maybe. When I didn't. I understood that. I didn't maybe understand from the interviews that I did that people at Rewak were upset by finding themselves in an artwork in the end, or at least some people.
In 2009.
Yes.
Actually, they're doing new things. Anyway, just also one question, like Fida,
that
like
person
losing
was my husband.
Losing,
that's why I know.
losing our hearts. You use this term. You lost your hearts.
Hearts. Yeah.
Hearts. You lost. Exactly. But this is another way to say that the institutions weren't creative enough to develop this program. Like doing the same thing.
What do you mean?
I mean the thing they did stay the same. You did the same thing that you've been doing
all the
first
time.
two. Yeah.
You're saying institutions are not creative?
They didn't really develop the idea of Columbia International to go somewhere else.
And I don't think it's about the creativity of institutions. I think it's a bit. Doesn't make any sense to put creativity and institutions in the same sentence, to be honest. It doesn't make any sense, really. Because institutions are structures and creativity comes from people, not from any. They don't go along. Institution is a building with policies and blah, 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 rules and regulations. But if you think of it as a collection of minds, it's a different story. Then it cannot be called, I think, institution.
Yeah,
it's not creativity, it's really
no, because this institution that deals with biennales, with these kind of shows, they should be more, dynamic. Things have to move somewhere else. And started with, this is what happened actually in the beginning, started with the Rewak Biennale, then the project for Khaled, and then the museum, and then the whole idea came into international Biennale show. There was kind of development.
There was development, there was momentum, people loved the idea, but then... I don't think it was a lack of creativity, but maybe more of the start of a depression.
Okay.
No, what year was that? What year was that? I don't remember.
Of
18.
The last one.
18. Yes.
Trying to remember what we were going through in 2018.
No,
there was
the term creativity I'm using here is not about producing artworks and stuff like this. It's about how
thinking
to manage
outside
this,
the box and how to manage it.
Exactly.
I think it's flexibility.
How
maybe
this
is
massive,
more the
Yeah, I think so. It's more about flexibility, the lack of flexibility, or not necessarily just the lack. It's you wish you created something that you wanted to be really light and flexible all the time. It was never the point to create something big.
And then
with Qalandia, it was never the point to create something big. Never. The idea was, we have the spaces, we have the exhibitions, we have the artworks, we have the network, everything is already there. Just put them together in one time frame. That's as simple as this. So it was never the idea to create this big, massive, and we never wanted a huge structure or a rigid thing. Or that's why I'm saying, because in Rewak it allowed for this just to be in your in the back of your mind and just deal with everything else.
It's not even like many people explained, like, and it took a while for me to understand that even anyway, like to make a separate institution for Colombia would just be impossible.
And pointless.
And pointless, perhaps.
No, really pointless.
But I think, I mean, it's a question, there is a question about the intention, like, that comes from and then that Khalil had with Ruwaq, which has to do, I think, with a kind of laughter. With a kind of ironic laughter or sarcastic laughter or whatever kind of laughter.
But it has to do a lot with reality, really. Like, I mean,
yeah. But laughter is a way of engaging with a certain unpleasant reality, and tolerating it or dealing with it, or even showing defiance with it. But then maybe the laughter stopped with Colombia International.
Maybe. No, it was really fun, the first 2 or 3 editions. Maybe just putting a theme and just spending too much time thinking about the theme.
But maybe at the same time, it seems as if, like, this idea that, I mean, about art as a kind of tool for resistance, ultimately, like, you can say there's maybe in some situations actually art can't do anything anymore, and maybe actually because this was part of Picasso in Palestine to say, okay, we use art project to show the reality of Oslo and also to make fun of Oslo a bit. But it seems like no one's laughing anymore.
How in
No, of course.
Picasso it's about making fun of Oslo?
With this 2 guys.
So it's like a part of Oslo.
It was using Oslo to expose. It was using the mechanisms of Oslo to expose Oslo as like the thing that it is, and that's how I thought of it. Like as a kind of like one of the when you use radio isotopes to to show the circulatory system, like a diagnostic tool. That's how I kind of saw it, was like using artwork as a diagnostic tool. But since everyone says that the PA is dead, there's no point. Like the patient has died. There's no point anymore to continue with this. So maybe art has to go towards a much more humble aspiration at the moment.
What do you mean?
You mean not resistance?
No, resistance, but maybe not on this.
Maybe art start to be more like Palestinian art specific. The arts start to be more engaged with outside the world, not with the local context.
But the Biennale is art for the outside world.
But didn't succeed to contain itself. It failed.
No, not necessarily. The last edition there was international. The following edition would have been 2020, and it was COVID.
Still going on.
No, and after COVID, خلاص.
خلاص.
يعني what happened to biennales around the world after COVID?
Yeah.
يعني it's not we're not a different reality. We're more precarious than other countries, and it just happened. يعني it's only normal for things to disappear in such a situation with COVID. I'm saying, but I don't know if COVID didn't happen, if Qalandia would have been, discussed at least. I don't know.
I don't just. I mean, what I was Yeah. What I was thinking, maybe then there's like a time for the art to not be about, or the artist not be overly preoccupied with working for like this international audience, but working for the local community, working with the local community, and forget outside, just whatever it is. I mean, the model that comes to mind is like this what the cinema, like this late 60s, early 70s in Brazil, like the tropicalismo movement, like the kind of, or like what is it even called, the cinema movement, the in Brazil and elsewhere, making work with very humble means, third world cinema.
Misery aesthetics, I think Brazilian school was like that. Misery aesthetics or something translated to English.
With like this third world cinema movement, for instance, and maybe like it's about having nice techniques. This can also be like a deliberate strategy. Like, we don't have nice flat screen monitors, or nice techniques, or good sound systems, or whatever. Like, it can be. I mean, this is for me always something that's inspired my work to a certain extent, is how to work within given constraints, and how and say, I don't want to spend whatever 10,000 euros on one project. I spend 500. I mean, that's also why I work with drawings. It's you can make hundreds of drawings with 100 euros. But when you have this kind of scale of ambition that requires a certain apparatus, that's the beginning of maybe taking oneself seriously in an unproductive way. I don't know. That's just one thought, but I mean, also I think it's how do you get a community to join